If you look at the average lifetime and how much they invest in your services, whatever you provide them, that average is the lifetime value of your customer. There's different ways to calculate it, but essentially it's essentially the average amount that you make off of a particular customer. So 20 years ago, that was really based on evoking positive emotion, creating memories, things like that. And that has really changed in the last 20 years. And it's been accelerated because of COVID. I would estimate right now that we are about 5 years ahead of where we would have been had COVID not hit. So we're right now in about 2027, based on from an experience perspective, what really pulled people forward. So lifetime value now is really dependent upon what I call transformational CX, which we're going to walk through today. And essentially, you must guide your customers through a series of experiences to help them achieve their aspirations and goals. Now, the beautiful part of it, I know everyone on this call here today is already focused on that. That's what your businesses are about. They're about transforming people, helping them achieve their aspirations and their goals in a variety of different ways. Most of it in the medical field or in the health genre, but it can go well beyond that as well. So to understand what accelerated during COVID, I want to take you back to 1999. We're going to kind of do this way back time machine, if you will. And in 1999, there was a great book written that's been updated for the 20th anniversary. It's called The Experience Economy by Joseph Pine and James Gilmore. And this book essentially shares 5 economies that coexist out there. They're ways in which companies actually engage and compete with one another, and they can coexist side by side, as you'll see here in a moment. But as you move up the different levels of the economies from one to another, there's more value to be derived. And so if you want to really extend the lifetime value of your customers, you have to be looking, how do I move from where I am to the next highest level? And so I'm going to share quickly those levels. The first one, and I'm going to use coffee as the example. So the example they use in the book, and coffee is something that everyone can relate to. I find no matter where you are in the world, everyone gets this idea. So if you think about coffee beans, we extract the commodity itself, and the beans that make up a cup of coffee are worth about 5 cents, with inflation, maybe 7 cents. But you can see that it's not worth a whole lot. So you've got to have a lot of coffee beans to be able to make a profit. If you step it up a level and you turn it into a brand where you've got a product, you put it on a shelf, you do advertising around it, you make it a product, if you will, that's now valued at about 15 cents per cup. If we move up a step higher than that, we get to coffee that's brewed and provided as a service. So think about the convenience store maybe that you pass on the way to your office in the morning, or think about that diner that you might see someone go into and stop for breakfast and a cup of coffee. It's about $1.50 or maybe $2 for a basic cup of coffee there. If we take it a step further, we start thinking about the ambiance, staging and experience. Think about Starbucks, Panera, a lot of the other coffee shops out there, the local coffee shop you might see as well. We're talking a minimum of $5 for a cup of coffee. And that's because they stage experiences that evoke these sensations, these emotions, and it really raises the value of that for us. In fact, if you, the Starbucks CEO, Howard Schultz, wrote a book, I think it's his first book, and he really talks about the third place. You know, people didn't have this place to gather anymore as society changed and culture changed. And so he saw Starbucks as that third place, and it really is creating an experience for people to come together and gather. Now, the fifth level, let me take a step back for a second. The fourth level, going the wrong way, the fourth level here, the experience, this is where essentially the experience economy book focuses on. It talks about Disney. It talks about the Ritz-Carlton. It talks about a lot of companies that are focused on the experience and on emotions and on memory making. And in the very end of the book, they have 1 or 2 pages that talk about this idea of, well, what comes next after the experience economy? And they were kind of being predictive about it. And I would say that most people haven't even talked about this. Most people are still talking about the experience economy. They're talking about customer experience or patient experience and things like that. And those are all good. But in reality, there's another economy that has has emerged, and with COVID has really taken off. And a lot of people still are not even aware it's there, even though they might be participating in it. And that is the transformation economy, or kind of this aspiration, if you will. Now, this picture here is actually from London. The gentleman on the right in the picture is the founder of a company called Change Please. And Change Please is a coffee company. They have these mobile coffee carts that they would park around different streets in London. And all of the employees that you see there are actually people who are or were homeless. And what he did was he recognized that they would need in the UK about 100,000 baristas over the next 10 to 20 years. And it was a shortage because a lot of people didn't want those jobs. But then he looked and found that, gosh, there's people on the street that could do this if they were trained. So he brings in the homeless people, helps train them up to be baristas, gives them a skill that they can actually use. And then they're assigned to these carts and they go around and they serve coffee around London, and they charge about the same as a Starbucks cup of coffee. So about $5 or $6 for a basic cup of coffee. But what happens is, as a result, they earn a living. They get to first go into a shared flat, so they have a safe place they can live. And then from there, they get their own place as they make more money. And many of them go on to become thriving individuals, get the help they need in various areas, and actually get better jobs moving on from this. So it really reintegrates them into society. So this is kind of a transformational level, because this coffee company is not about the profit per se. They're about reinvesting into the community and really helping the community transform into something more and transforming individual lives. Now, the key is for the individual as a consumer, right? I could walk into Starbucks and I could get that cup of coffee and I could walk out. And you may remember the commercials from a few years ago about the person drinking the cup of Starbucks coffee as they walk down the street. And it's just like, that just makes their day, right? Starbucks can be, for many people, a bit of an ego trip. It's like, look at me, I can afford the Starbucks cup of coffee. A lot of us don't think that, but there's an element of ego in there. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. A lot of it could be connected to memories, could be about how we feel better, could be all of these different things that are positive for us or help us get through our day. However, if you were in London and you stopped and got a cup of coffee from Change Please Coffee, the difference here is you're walking down the street with a cup of coffee, you spent the same amount as you would at Starbucks, but instead, you know that you were a philanthropist. You know that you helped transform that person's life. You helped a homeless person get off the street into safe housing. You're helping them learn a skill and become something more in their life. And so that's really the essence of the difference here. So kind of a short way to describe this, most of you are probably playing in either the service economy, the experience economy, or the transformation economy. And I want you to really think about this, because this is part of our exercise for later. Do people primarily pay you for the activities that you do for them? Like, are they buying your time and expertise? Is that what you're selling? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it something that they pay for how they expect to feel? Are they buying an emotion or a memory? Is that what you talk about when you're selling to them? Or are you selling this, who they expect to become, a new worldview, a new identity of themselves? What level are you playing at? Now, I usually keep out the product and service, or I'm sorry, the product and commodities, because for a group like you, you're not playing in that space. You might a little bit, but for the most part, you're probably playing in one of these three. And none of them are wrong, but I'm going to suggest if you're not in the transformational economy, there are ways to really up-level what you're doing, and as a result, generate more income for yourself and better results for your customers so they stay with you longer. And what happened during COVID, and you can look around in a variety of different areas, the one question that people really got to is, who am I really? They began to question, why am I working in this job? Why am I doing this thing? Why am I attending this church? Why am I doing any of these things? Who am I really? And it's a really profound question that as a society, very seldom have we had an opportunity to look at a question like this and make decisions en masse, if you will. All of us are making our individual decisions, but we're seeing what's called the Great Resignation. In fact, what it is it's the great reevaluation. Do I want to be working here in this type of situation the rest of my life or not? Is there something better for me? Who am I? And that's the fundamental question. That is a transformation-based question. People want to know, well, this isn't who I see myself as being. I see myself as being something completely different. And they move down that path.